god, did you see his numbers again? Yeah, he's been at the bottom for like a month.
Come on, you scrubs! To arms!
Lex might be a little too far from the mic, maybe a little closer.
It's touching my face.
Not another spider!
I was not protected. Oh yeah, doesn't work with fall damage.
I was standing in the pool because I thought we had the silk in.
Ooh, fell asleep at my desk. And I drowned in this foaming canal.
No, Jim, I don't want to hear about your chaos bolt.
What, you want me to dispel? I don't even have that on my action bars.
Stop standing in the fire!
What fire?
Alright, pre-pot, and tricks to the trade. Oh, that was the healer.
What just killed me there? Yep, physical damage. So bad at playing a demon hunter.
Oh my god, we did it.
You're listening to Scrubs vs. the World with your hosts, Cy and Projali. And welcome into the show, everyone. Tonight we're going to dive deep in the Battle for Azeroth lore pool and give our final grades for what the story was for the Battle for Azeroth. And joining us this evening is going to be Jared with Merely A Setback. So before we dive into that interview, I wanted to highlight a scrub moment I had from last episode. So last episode, I introduced a fine gentleman by the name of Projali as the co-host, and I gave him like 12 seconds to introduce himself. So tonight, we're going to fix that. And Projali, welcome officially to the show, man.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining the team.
Of course.
I know that our journey into the future is going to be awesome, and we're going to cover all kinds of cool, wild stuff. But before we do any of that stuff,
yes,
let's get to know you a little bit better.
Uh-oh.
So, how long have you been playing WoW?
I have played WoW since that, like, December 2004. So basically right after it came out, jumped on the train with my friends, started leveling a troll shaman, and it took me quite a bit of time to get to 60. I remember right when I dinged 60, I got pulled into a raid in Zul'Gurub. That was the week that Zul'Gurub dropped, I think, is when I hit 60. So I get pulled into this big world of raiding right from the get-go.
Oh, wow.
So much fun. So stuck around with raiding through pretty much my whole WoW career. Took a little break during WoD and Legion. Played very casually, but coming back into BFA, some friends convinced me to get back into raiding, and I've been hooked again ever since.
There you go. The dragon has come calling.
Yes.
Time to go chase it again.
Indeed.
All right. Well, cool. So you mentioned raiding. What level are you raiding at currently?
So I came back to a guild that we've ramped back up to close to its former glory, ending with cutting edge in both Eternal Palace and Nyalotha. The rank I think we ended up was just north of US 200, so we were able to improve the group from basically doing heroics at the end of Legion to having a mythic level raiding team by the end of BFA. And so I think with our roster leading into the next expansion, Shadowlands, I think we're going to even try and see if we can squeeze out Hall of Fame.
Hell yeah. I think you guys will do it. I mean, if the Knights of Chipotle can get, the AOTC raiding one night a week for 4 hours, if that, I believe in you guys.
Yeah, but you have delicious burritos on your side.
That's true. Well, cool. So part of the reason why I was looking for a co-host was I feel like this show has done a really good job with like the long form interview, and it's really fun to do. I really enjoy it. I like grabbing people's perspectives, and perspective is kind of like the key to this whole thing. Like, how do we view the game? Like, what lens are we looking at this thing through? My lens comes from more of a casual perspective. So with that said, to capture the full spectrum of the WoW community, I wanted to bring on somebody who had a little bit more experience, who, understands the mechanics of the game a little bit better and has that mythic rating perspective and kind of join forces. But I'm interested in, what interested you in joining this show?
It's clearly the promise of all of that sweet broadcasting revenue. I think I get a lot of enjoyment out of World of Warcraft as a hobby, and whether it's making, kill videos for my guild on YouTube or getting this opportunity to just talk about all sorts of things in WoW with a friend, it's going to be just another way for me to get a lot of fun out of this game. And so learn a lot of new stuff, because I end up focusing a lot on raiding and Mythic Plus and don't get a whole lot of focus on the rest of the game because of it. So I think getting to see some more interesting topics will be fun.
Well, hell yeah. Well, I'm excited. I know we're working on some new ideas that should be pretty fun and hopefully informative. And it's going to be great. I can't wait for the future. So with that said, let's dive on into the interview.
Cover for me. I got to whiz behind a tree.
All right, and welcome in, Jared. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm hanging in there.
Hanging in there's a good word, or a good phrase.
So, Jared, you are from a show called Merely A Setback.
That I am.
And you are the lore maestro, is that correct?
Well, I'm one of the lore masters. Me and Sharku over there. Was me, Sharku, and Shoeboots, but Shoeboots had to step away for real life reasons.
That'll happen.
Yeah, it happens. It happens. But yeah, we're a lore and storytelling show focused on looking at all of the ways that Blizzard tells the story of Azeroth, whether it's in-game, any of the books, comic books, you name it, anything that has any bit of storytelling, we talk about it. So yeah.
Sweet. Yeah, if you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend it. It's a fun show. Good times. But thanks for joining us. So Projali, you're joining us here as well.
Yes, I am.
And so to set this up, so we wanted to do a show where we kind of wrapped up the lore of BFA. Now, Jared, you did join me for a kind of a BFA wrap-up, air quotes.
Yeah.
But we kind of talked more about, what was your plan to finish out BFA and what were you doing to prepare to go into the Shadowlands. This show, we want to try to break down the story and find out which side had a better story. So, I, being an Alliance player, think the Alliance is better. But Projali, being a Horde player, thinks the Horde side's better.
You're entitled to your wrong opinion, Sarah. But...
And I having played both sides, I won't say equally. I definitely played more Horde this expansion. But having played both sides of the story, I have some insights.
Excellent. Well, let's get to those insights here. So, let's start with the Alliance side. Now, the main gist of the Alliance side story is you go with Jaina, spoilers if you haven't seen it yet, and you go through and you're trying to unite the nation of Kultiris. So you have to go to each of the zones, win over their houses, and bring them back to fight with Jaina's mom and fight off the forces of evil.
Very Game of Thronesy.
Very, very. So, from the Alliance side, I thought it was cool. I thought it was fun. But I want to hear more about the Horde side stuff. So, Projali, if you want to jump in there and let us know, what was the Horde stuff about?
Horde stuff, really, you had Princess Talanji coming to recruit, essentially, the Horde to come back with her to Soldazar and help her old dad out, who has a history of doing a whole lot of nothing, really. That's kind of where a lot of the conflict comes from, is his inaction leads to other people trying to get stuff done. You've got blood trolls brewing about in Nazmir. trying to stir up some trouble. Bring back a kind of a fake old god, if you really think about it. But then you've got some other warring factions within the Volpera and the Sethrak out in Vol'dun. There's a lot of conflict going on there. That's kind of new to the region. And lots of dinosaurs.
I know.
And it's hard to beat dinosaurs.
That almost won by default. Just because you had dinosaurs.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, you walk into to Zuldazar for the first time and just see a giant Brutosaur walking down the street. And you're just like, yeah, I made the right choice. Yeah.
I will own that one day.
Oh, I won't, sadly. Well, that's because I'm impatient. But anyways, that's a great summary of what happened. I didn't do the summary for the Alliance side, like a dork, but real quick before we move on. Now, Drustvar, you were dealing with some cool witches in the Drust. So my favorite zone probably of all time is Drustvar, because you walk into that first little town and everyone's frozen in place. You're like, what the hell's going on? And all their food has flies everywhere. There's crows pecking at everything. Really creepy. And then you get later on into the zone, you get the pigmen who are sewn together and stuff. It's like a horror movie, which is, that was fun. That was good times. Storm Song Valley kind of had a feel of, I just kind of felt, man, because you're the Kotiris like shipbuilding operations are up there, and it's just kind of a okay zone. But then Tiergard Sound was interesting because you had Ashvane's influence, because she's farting around behind the scenes, and then you had the pirates, which is always a good time. So, both sides have some pretty cool things. What do you think, Jared? What was your take?
There was a lot of really interesting stuff going on through the intro storylines, through the leveling zones on both Horde and Alliance sides. Like we touched on the political intrigue of Kultiris and everything that was going on with that, about like all the different power plays that various heads of houses were making, trying to get Jaina executed. That was a big thing throughout the entire storyline. Like no matter which zone that you were playing in, Jaina was brought up at some point, and there's a lot of that also going on in the Horde storyline as well, especially surrounding Talanji and her father. Like she's basically the exact opposite of her dad, in that she's very, let's go get stuff done. Like there's all these horrible things happening to my people. I've got to protect my people. I've got to do something. Whereas he's just like, we'll let it play out and see what happens. And she is just like, no, we can't. We absolutely can't do that. But within the Zandalari power structure, there's a whole bunch of different things going on at the same time. Most notably is that Zul is trying to take the kingdom for himself by usurping Rastakhan. And the whole first raid, where we go into Uldir, is following that storyline of Zul trying to do everything in his power to kill Rastakhan and take the throne for himself. And all of the story surrounding the first raid is told on the Horde side. Like, you get a little bit, like, we get a call to action to go to Uldir as Alliance, but there's not really any pressing reason other than, oh, hey, they're resurrecting an old god, and we're just like, okay, yeah, sure, let's go kill it.
Let's go check it out.
Yeah, that sounds bad.
Sounds cool.
But we don't get any of the overarching story surrounding the lead up to that raid as Alliance. So right off the bat, right from the get-go of this expansion, the Horde just has the better story because it has the most that's connecting what's going on zone to zone and through the leveling quest lines, tying it into the first raid. And that just dips right over into the second raid with the intro to Battle for Dazar'alor. Again, all of that story is mostly told from the Horde side, and I will give props to Blizzard for this because they did quite a bit on the Alliance side to set it up, and I think that was absolutely necessary because if you remember, Battle for Dazar'alor was very much Horde versus Alliance. The entire raid was centered around that. So they needed to put in the work on both sides of the faction war to set it up, and I think that they did a pretty good job because as Alliance, you had reason to want to go to Zandalar, and specifically to Zuldazar, to do something about Rastakhan, because they just knew the trolls are up to something, and they're gonna do something terrible and try to wipe out Kultiris if they don't act now. Whereas on the Horde side, you had a whole lot of all of that political intrigue, that conflict between Rastakhan and Zul coming to a head right at the start of that raid and resolving with Rastakhan's death. So. There's a lot on both sides, but I think just looking at the first half of the expansion, Horde easily takes the cake for best story going through the expansion.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to agree with that. Just because I remember going into Uldir and just being like, why, what the hell's going on? Like, oh, okay, yeah, the blood trolls are doing something, but why does this affect me? But
yeah. So I think, and it's kind of a common theme throughout WoW, the old unexpected twist that they kind of bring with a lot of expansions. But we've had a lot of double crosses this expansion. So whether on the Alliance side you've got Priscilla Ashfane going against the Proudmoors and siding with Ashara, trying to seek her own power. You've got Prophet Zul and the rest of the Zanshuli Council metaphorically and realistically stabbing Rastakhan in the back. And then even
Zul.
Yeah, A2 Zul. It's Brutus all over again. And then you've even got Sylvanas, who you really don't get a full picture of what she's doing until, 8.2 into 8.3, when you're starting to see a lot of her kind of putting the machinations potentially of some unknown figure we know now, probably the jailer, but putting all of that into play with Nathanos by her side. So kind of throughout all of that, it's who would you say is probably the most unforgivable in terms of like their reasoning for what they did?
Well, Zul's rough.
He's got the worst trash platform, so I mean, my vote's for Zul, just on that alone.
But at the same time, Sylvanas is, what she did is pretty unforgivable. Like in terms of like what she did to characters that we've known and loved for ever. Like I think what she did weighs a lot more than what Zul did, because he just did something to Rastakhan, a character that was introduced this expansion.
Right.
Whereas Sylvanas did something to Bane, did something to name is escaping me.
She Hadouken Sourfang.
Sourfang. That's
Varric
it.
did.
Like you look at what she did to those two characters, ultimately killing one.
Mm-hmm.
I think that holds a lot more weight to it than what Zul did in the overarching story of Warcraft. So I think Sylvanas is probably the more unforgivable one, and Ashvane, I just put her up to, she was just doing petty stuff.
Right.
It like ultimately didn't get anywhere and didn't do anything meaningful to the narrative. Like she was a foil placed in the way for Jaina and her mother.
Mm-hmm.
And like they gave her a little like sideshow with Ashara and made her into a raid boss, but like ultimately it had no bearing on anything important going on in the storyline.
Yeah. I think if she had the hindsight of kind of her self-serving purpose was to kind of do what she did, and then she ends up a barnacled massive raid boss, I'm not sure she would be going down that same path.
Now, in Priscilla's defense, I mean, she was a DPS check for that raid.
And Zul was as well. Zul was, if he didn't have a sub rogue, he could be kind of a doozy.
He was a doozy, but I mean, I think I'd like to jump in here, but in my book, obviously, Sylvanas torched the World Tree. Just kind of hanging out there out of left field and not minding hurting anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not even to
it.
mention
Whatever.
The genocide. Casual genocide. Just...
a little thing like that. Yeah. But I think that was more of a thing to set up you damn horde bastards.
It's her playing into as much destruction and death as possible to bring souls to them all. It's all
just carrying us directly into the next expansion storyline.
Yep.
Yeah. Which will be fun.
So, kind of going off that question of who was probably the most unforgivable of the expansion, I think there were definitely a lot of those characters who inspired hope through the game, and so I think you've got a lot of characters who come back and are actually admirable. So maybe your Rathion's cunning coming to help out, humanity once again in spite of his father's actions. Characters like that. So, in your opinion, who are some of the kind of more admirable people that we've seen in this expansion?
Ooh, well, I mean, Rathion definitely coming up and bringing his warning to Anduin, and doing all that he did to help, which they were leaving the seeds for that fairly early on into the expansion. But other characters, I would have to say Fairwind. He's a character that has brought immense joy to so many people, and while his character, I wouldn't necessarily characterize him as admirable, what his character was able to do and how it functioned in the story, I think did a lot to raise the tone.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. We didn't really see Talia do anything. Talia Fordragon. We didn't really see her do anything.
Yeah.
Aside from, just being like a slight plot point through the leveling experience. Once we got to 120, and got through those first couple of
The Warfronts?
What was not the Warfront, the war campaign.
The
first couple of war campaign quests. she basically was just sidelined in Borealis, and we didn't really see anything else from her throughout the entire rest of the expansion. But I don't really know who else to give the admirable title to, because I don't want to give it to Jaina, because she almost committed a genocide on the Zandalari people. Almost. Didn't quite.
Not
but her
quite.
intentions were to. So
she looked
take
pretty
that
upset
for what it is. And I don't really want to give it. I guess you could give it to Talanji, even though in the novel that came out, the novel that's going to be bridging a little bit of the gap in story between BFA and Shadowlands, Shadows Rising, Talanji in that novel, she's kind of the other side of the coin to Tyrande, because Tyrande has it out for the Horde, and Talanji
she's really
has
pissed
it out.
off.
Yeah, extremely, and she doesn't even want to do anything. She doesn't even want anything to do with the Horde, because the Horde currently, like the current leadership of the Horde, the Council, is trying to do whatever they can to kind of not necessarily make amends, but make sure that there isn't any further bloodshed between them and the Alliance. And Talanji's just like, no, we need to kill him, like right now. We just have to do that. So I don't really want to give it to Talanji either, because while she definitely did some admirable things throughout the expansion, what she's doing now is not great.
Yeah,
that's fair. Would you consider Ashara, since she gives up the dagger?
See, I can't because I know things about the story of Shadowlands. We don't have anything concrete about her in particular, and I'm not going to give any spoilers away for the expansion, so no need to worry about clicking off this. But I can't in good conscience say beyond a shadow of a doubt that she won't be or she won't be a thorn in our side going forward. Despite
she's like a Scooby-Doo villain.
Yeah, despite quote unquote helping us by giving us the dagger, I think the only reason she gave us the dagger is because she had no need for it anymore, because she found another way to gain the power that she's after. So yeah, I'll leave that at that.
Okay.
She was also being tortured when we found her in Nyalotha, so it's
that's true.
It's a little under duress that she gave up that dagger, I think.
That's true.
You would
that.
think that.
Yeah.
You would definitely think that. Just looking at that raid at a face value, you would definitely think she was under duress giving us the dagger, but I think she is working with Sylvanas at the very least. We already know from Legion that Sylvanas was working with what's her name? Odin's daughter that he banished.
Oh, Helia?
Helia.
Yep.
We already know that she's working with Helia.
Right.
And I think that there is a connection there that a lot of people have made, but I don't think is in the forefront of a lot of people's minds going into Shadowlands.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so basically, you mentioned Game of Thrones, this, there's really no admirable, there's moments where people do good things, and then there are moments where we're just like, what the hell? I can't believe I was a part of that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
At both Horde and Alliance, I'd like, and for all of the Sylvanas loyalists out there, what are you doing? What are you doing?
I think they just like cool elves with bows. I don't know. It's a little transparent at this point.
Yeah. I mean, and what sucks is I actually liked Sylvanas' character throughout WoW's lifespan.
Oh, brilliant character, absolutely.
Yeah. Like when I saw her get turned into the Banshee Queen in Warcraft 3, I was like, oh, they did her like that? And so I was always a fan of hers, and so part of me actually really enjoys the Undead because of that.
Yeah.
But now, like, I'm actually curious to see what her plan is, because I wonder if there's going to be some moment where we're like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. You didn't have to kill everybody else to get there, but I can see where you're going, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, looking back in the rest of the story, and this is something that we've harped on our show quite a lot, is that I think what they're trying to do is set up Sylvanas as a sort of Illidan type character. Because, I mean, we knew that Illidan was a pretty bad dude, but throughout the entire Legion expansion, we find out that he was making decisions that no one else would make in order to ultimately thwart the Legion's plans. And, like, everyone's still pretty much in agreement that what he did was absolutely awful, and he probably should have found, or tried to find, a different way before going gung-ho, like sacrificing my entire squad of mages to, like, superpower my spell and doing stuff like that. He probably should have found a different way to, you know, do what he was doing, but I think that they're setting Sylvanas up to be another the ends justify the means character, which I'm not entirely certain how I feel about that at this point. But if there's one thing that we've learned throughout the entirety of the history of Warcraft, is that these stories are cyclical. They're very much cyclical in that the characters change, the events themselves change largely, but the stories themselves don't. Like the core of these stories don't really change all that much. So I'm interested to see where they're going with Sylvanas' character for sure.
Nice. So I know you mentioned Fairwind earlier as far as like a character you enjoyed. You know, what are some of the other characters you found along the way that you really liked?
There's too many.
Let's
far
do top
too many.
three.
Top three. The end boss of the Waycrest Manor dungeon, Gorak Tool. I think he's a character that I would like very much to see more expanded upon in the future, and I definitely think that we're going to be, if not seeing Gorak Tool, we'll definitely be seeing the Drust developed on in the next expansion, because they are like the Drust homeworld, or I guess pocket world, is very much tied to the Shadowlands. So we'll definitely see that unfold a little bit. I want to see Kalia brought a little bit more into the forefront. Like they did a lot to set up her character. It's like at the end of this expansion, she's not the leader of the undead, but she's working directly with Lillian Voss, in order to make sure that the undead have a seat at the table in the Horde Council, in the absence of Sylvanas, who's been their only leader up to this point. So I would like them to develop Callie a little bit more. It is a little weird, like she's the first Alliance character, which she's not even really associated with the Alliance, but she's the first character that's gone from Alliance to like being openly Horde that we've seen. Like we have Valyra Sanguinar, who's kind of like a go-between, but she's a rogue. That's kind of her shtick. And obviously we have Anduin and Bane's relationship that kind of bridges the gap between Horde and Alliance. But she's the first character that's really like getting into the politics of the Horde, and openly trying to help her people, the people of Lordaeron, as much as possible. So I'd really like to see Kalia developed, and oh gosh, third character I would really like to see developed more. I'm gonna have to think on that one for a minute. If you guys want to talk about characters that you would like to see, I'm gonna have to think on it for a little bit.
I think it's got to be Johnny, the patron of scavengers, the lord of thieves, the god of garbage. So,
yes.
So I think it needs to be a recurring character at some point in Shadowlands. Just advocating for the people. Really, Johnny's just a Loa of the people. Not gonna let the poor folks of Zandalar get crushed by those gold grubbing Zanshul councils.
Right on.
What a
That's
character.
a good one, man. I don't know if I could think of one that would top that. That's a top tier play right there.
Yeah, you gotta turn in your trash somewhere. Why not a Loa?
Gotta save all that bat guano that we've been holding in our banks from Siege of Fort Kamar.
Right? Exactly.
Let's see. I'll get it on this. Let's one thing that I thought was, now this isn't like a person that's actually in our story or anything, but there's a random Vicruel standing in Borealis at a table, and you can click on her, and she doesn't really do anything. But I was wondering why. Like, why is she there? Like, what's the point of her standing here?
Huh.
I've always wondered that, because I saw her like day one. I was like, whoa, what is she doing here? Like, what the hell's going on? And she's kind of down by the island stable.
Yeah, I remember who you're talking about. But I don't know that they'll necessarily do anything with the Vrykul in the future. I think that was more just a clever nod. I mean, it makes sense that a Vrykul would be there, because they are like a seafaring people. Like their whole shtick is boats. So I think it works. I think it definitely works. But yeah, I don't really know. I don't know if they'd do anything with them.
Probably not. But that was just one that I don't know why that just sticks up in my mind. It's like, who the hell is this random Vicruel lady?
Yeah, like, this character needs a last name. They need a story. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, we need something. We need more background
Who is
tales.
this?
Maybe that's what we'll turn this show into. The background tales of the random NPC guys and gals.
I think so. I have my last one, and I think the character that I want to see them work on a little bit more is Nathanos, because he's been such an integral part of Sylvanas' story, but all of his actions have only served to further Sylvanas' ends, and we haven't really seen him do anything for himself. We don't know what necessarily is going on with him personally. We only know what's going on in relation to Sylvanas. So I would like to see something develop him a little bit more. I hate his guts. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, I hate the character so much.
Yeah. Absolutely garbage human being. But I would like to see them flesh out his story a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be interesting, because that's all you see is just this all business, like no fun guy who is like obsessed with his leader. Now, I wonder if that is because like there's actually like feelings behind it, or maybe he's just programmed to be the best follower you can be.
Maybe so. Like there was a short story that came out around, I want to say it was Cataclysm. Cataclysm era, maybe Mr. Pandaria. I think it's called Dark Mirror. And it's specifically, that short story is about the relationship between Sylvanas and Nathanos. But even then, that's not necessarily what I want to see from the character. I don't want to see him through the lens of relationship between him and Sylvanas. I want to see his character.
Who is Nathanos?
Separate from the story with him and Sylvanas. So whether we'll see something there, I doubt it. I would just like to see it.
No, I think that's a good one. Because I think knowing as much as we can about these characters as we go forward just adds to the world and just makes it feel grander.
Yeah,
makes it more exciting, more interesting. So, well, cool. All right, so character-wise, with the double crosses and whatnot, I think it's pretty safe to say, again, the Horde has a better story because, like you were saying, Priscilla Ashvane was just kind of like she was just there to push the plot forward as the nail in the tire, if you will. So I think Ashvane's double cross isn't as kind of powerful as Zul's, in my opinion. So yeah, so I think so far, I think we could safely say the Horde story has been better thus far. Can we agree on that? As far as like the intrigue with the character, double crosses and everything. I think the Alliance side's more of feels like a classic WoW adventure. You're going through, and like as you go through the zones, you're finding out all these things that are happening, and you're kind of dealing with those situations, like the Drust Witches and all that other stuff. But the Horde side feels like you're actually making an impact by fighting the blood trolls and getting to the bottom of what Zul's doing.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, I did play through the Horde side, but I think the Horde story thus far, up to these next tier questions here, is just, I think it's better too. So I gotta get 2 points back here somehow.
Yeah.
All right, so let's kind of dive into some deeper questions here. The Alliance side is very much centered around Jaina for the first half of the expansion, we'd say, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I think this was Blizzard's way of kind of fleshing out her story a bit more, because when we see her in the past, Theramore gets nuked by Garrosh. So she goes on hellbent, I'm going to murder every Horde piece of crap I see. Now she's kind of grown as a character where she's able to forgive, and she understands that, well, that wasn't the root of who these Horde characters are, because she's buddies with Bane and Thrall. So, do you think that Blizzard did a good job of kind of fleshing her character out more in this expansion?
I would say that they did a better than just good job with her story. I'm not gonna lie. Going into the expansion with, the Daughter of the Sea thing, and even up through like a good chunk of the questing storyline, I didn't think that they were gonna go that route with Jaina's story. I very much thought that they were setting her up to be of the same coin as Sylvanas. But they surprised me, and I would like to think a lot of other people with bringing her down off that ledge, proverbially, yes. But yeah, it was a surprise, a pleasant one, if I'm honest, that they didn't make her go complete murderous rampage Jaina, which I'm sure we'd have all would have loved to see that just as much as what we got, but I think having her character be the kind of counterbalance to everything that was going on with Sylvanas, I think worked extremely well for the story and for Jaina's story as a whole. Like she's had so many highs and lows. Definitely, like the highs being much higher than most of the other highs that characters have seen in the Warcraft universe, and the lows being much lower than a lot of other characters as well. I think for her to level out, I think was a fantastic thing for her story.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think, Projali, as a Horde player?
I think I would agree with that. So I mean, kind of to be fair, I didn't play a ton of Legion, but the impression you get coming out of WoD, especially in that cut sequence after Siege of Orgrimmar, is Jaina's on a warpath. Nothing's going to get in her way. She's only being held back basically by Anduin asking her to. It's a very precipitous situation that you're walking into as a Horde player whenever you see Jaina. And I think BOD kind of sealed the deal. You're like, oh, Talanji's never going to forgive this woman. She just murdered her father. Yeah. But you do see the rest of her storyline, and you see that forgiveness with her mom, and coming back into the Kultiris fold, where she's felt like hasn't had a home for so long that it's like, okay, yeah, there is a redemption arc that makes sense for this character, and I thought that was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, and honestly, like I felt like it hit a pretty deep chord, because it was talking about relationships with parents and stuff like that. I know like a lot of folks struggle with that, and being able to kind of fight off the ghost of like what you think your parents expect of you was also a pretty deep thing. I mean, really.
Yeah.
That kind of spoke to me, and I was just like, damn, because I have my own kids, and I'm like, I don't want to be like Jaina's dad here. My kids have to go fight the Drust to fight the ghost off of me away, So yeah. I felt that was really cool. And it was nice to see emotion other than we murder green and cow people and undead things need to die twice. It was nice to not have that. So to have that kind of switch in there. But it's interesting, like you're saying, that Projali in BOD, like Talanji's not going to appreciate that, which is understandable.
Nope.
But it kind of gives that fun where if you're playing both sides, you can see it and you're like, oh, damn. Because like I really like Talanji. I thought her story was really interesting. It was fun to watch her rise to power. But at the same time, my Alliance side was like, oh, yeah, she's stopping us from doing the thing we need to do.
Uh-huh. Yeah. It definitely gives something of an air of like you're watching a play. Like you as the audience member, you can see the bad guy standing off to the side of the set with a knife. But the characters in the scene can't. So you, as the audience member, you know what's about to happen, but the characters don't. And I feel like they have done a fantastic job of setting that exact scenario, of giving the audience more information, not all of the information, as to what's going on in these situations, but they give us a lot of the information that the characters don't have, and we get to see these characters making choices in like outside of the context of all of the information that we know. So I really appreciate the writing team in the job that they've done doing all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, and I thought it was messed up that they brought her brother back. It's like,
oh Derek,
oh boy,
man, oh man.
It's like Sylvanas gonna yell out like "purple fuzzy bunny ears" or something, and then he's gonna just flip on a dime and start killing everybody on the Alliance side.
I really hope not.
Like a Zoolander moment here.
Oh,
right, you have to kill the Prime Minister of Malaysia, Derek.
Sleeper Agent Derek Proudmore. No,
honestly, Derek too. It's perfect.
Oh gosh, no. I honestly, I don't think that they're going to do anything like that with his character, because he's working with Lily and Voss now, not the Alliance. He's not working with Jaina. He's working directly with the undead of the Undercity, and Kalia and Lily and Voss, and I just can't. Even given all of Sylvanas' evil, I don't think that she would set a sleeper agent out on her own people.
Yeah.
But you never know. You never know. She did tell them that they're all nothing. So
that's true.
I mean, the possibility is there.
I hope it's something. If it is a Manchurian Candidate style move here, I hope the phrase is something ridiculous. Derek Pepper's like,
he's activated.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So, yeah, this next show note was definitely written by Cy. So, but I guess we'll just dive in anyway. So, Sylvanas ended up fracturing the Horde by lighting the beloved, sweet, innocent, peaceful, and totally out of the way outpost of Teldrassil on fire, just up in flames. This event was definitely meant as an incendiary moment to justify going back to the origins of Warcraft orcs versus humans kind of mentality. But is this a fair representation of the Horde side story?
Overall?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like from the outset of the story of Warcraft, or are we just talking about BFA?
See, I don't think it'd be a fair shake in BFA. Maybe in the whole context of the Horde when it was originally orcs and trolls, maybe. But when there was a little more bloodthirst to it. But yeah, I don't know if it ties into the modern Horde so much.
No, I would definitely say that it doesn't tie into the modern Horde. Even Sourfang had his reservations. Like in the whole Darkshore event in the pre-patch for BFA, like we see Sourfang and Malfurion, or no, Sourfang and Sylvanas were dueling,
right?
And Sourfang sees that Sylvanas is about to be bested and launches his axe into Malfurion's back. And I don't... This was kind of vaguely communicated in game, where Sylvanas, like, or not Sylvanas, Sourfang, like, basically immediately was just like, I shouldn't have done that. Like, regretted it immediately. But in a short story that came out, I think Elegy is the one that talks about this specifically, but it goes a little bit deeper into that, where he feels like he's forsaken his honor at that point. And then whenever Sylvanas, like, they get to the shore and Sylvanas orders for Teldrassil to be burned, that's the moment that Sourfang's just like, no, I can't do this.
Yeah.
This is wrong. This goes against everything that I stand for as a member of the Horde. Like, I'm not gonna be party to this. So I think the roots of the Horde are very much seated in this idea of honor and glory.
Right.
And what Sylvanas did in burning Teldrassil was neither of those things. It brought no glory to the Horde. It brought victory, but no glory. It was very hollow victory. And it very much dishonored the Horde as well, because they killed a lot of innocent people. And like, you could argue that in the beginning, when the Horde first came to Azeroth, like, you could look at what they did through kind of the same lens and say that what they did then was really, really messed up. But you also have to take into consideration that they were in a foreign land where they could not understand the inhabitants of the planet that they had just arrived on.
Right.
They were starved for resources for decades on their home world where they had just come from. And they were just trying to survive and trying to do everything they could to ensure the survival of their people. So looking at it through that kind of lens, it kind of paints things in a different picture. Because yes, they did raise towns and villages, but they did it because they were like they were starving. They needed, they needed to carve out something for themselves so that they could sustain themselves. Whereas the burning of Teldrassil was just like, hey, I've got fire trebuchets, let's use them. Neat.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, and
just light it up.
From my perspective, like, of course, I was horrified because Teldrassil is like one of my favorite zones. Like, in the leveling experience, like classic Teldrassil, that like goes to another level for me. So when they burnt that tree, it's like, you assholes! I can't believe you're doing this. Like, and I felt almost like Blizzard was trying to poke me as an Alliance player because our Alliance versus Horde kind of rhetoric has fallen off a little bit over the years, and I think it just shows, like, and it just kind of shows the growth of the game and kind of where we've came from. Because I remember back in the day, like, I wouldn't associate with Horde players because I was Alliance. Damn it, like, that's just the way it was.
Right.
You guys were filthy invaders, and we had to take care of you.
Sure.
But as the game's grown, and we see, through the expansions, like, we've had to come together, then we're fighting each other, then we're coming together, then we're fighting each other. This felt weird to me, too. It didn't feel like it was in the right spot. So, or as far as, like, how it should have gone through what I was expecting, I guess.
Right.
So, I don't know. Blizz got a rise out of me. I was not happy.
That was the goal the whole time.
Yeah, well, it worked. I'm a Rube. I'm a Mark.
You fell for it.
Bit of a trap.
Kind of goes along that same idea of Sylvanas's just any means necessary to get the job done arc this expansion. They gave Horde players kind of a mini choice. It kept the storyline going in the same way. You got the same next quest, basically, but you got a choice to either fly back to camp, fly back to Orgrimmar, and just report back to Sylvanas immediately, or you got to get a little piece of information and go find where Sarfang was actually at. So do you think decisions like that were actually an effective way to tell the story, or do you feel like it felt kind of flat?
On the face value, it was contrived. Ultimately, the same thing happened, no matter what. You as a player siding with Sylvanas, you didn't get chain gang through the city of Orgrimmar with the rest of the Sylvanas loyalists,
Right.
which I'm not entirely certain how I would feel if they had gone that route of after the cinematic of the Makara played, if your character was just forced to march in line.
You have to delete it now.
I don't know. I don't necessarily think that they would have done that. Obviously they wouldn't have made people delete their characters, but I think just making it to where you're being forced to march through Orgrimmar with other Sylvanas loyalists, and then I don't know, Bane comes up to you and is just are you sure you want to do this? You want to still go with Sylvanas? And you're just nah. Mm-hmm. And then they let you out.
All right, cool.
I think that I'm really glad that they didn't do that. Really, really glad that they didn't do that. But also, that I think it goes to show the difficulty of letting people have meaningful choices.
Sure.
In a game, in an MMO, if this was Skyrim, it'd be a completely different story.
Mm-hmm.
This was a single player RPG. You could have all sorts of different storylines that branch out and go all which ways. But in an MMO, you can't really do that. You can't.
Story's got to go the same
that.
direction.
So ultimately, I think the decision itself was contrived, but I think that its goal wasn't necessarily to provide mechanically meaningful choices. I think the choice was put in to allow players to kind of have a little bit more option in the headcanon of the story for their own characters.
Sure.
And have something to say, yes, I made the choice to go with Sylvanas on this character, but my troll shaman definitely was 100% against everything Sylvanas did. So he went with Sourfang.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off of that, a lot of people said, well, the Lions we didn't have that choice. We actually did. The Hulk Hogan Nazoth sweatband that we could have wore, you had the choice to get it cleansed off or to not. And from my understanding is he just whispered to you the whole time and nothing came of it.
Yeah, but you got the sweatband, and it was a cosmetic thing. You couldn't hide it.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way that you could tell if anyone else had it is if you had it yourself.
Yeah.
If you had it, you could see the other players with it. But if you didn't have it, you couldn't tell who had
You'd
it
have no
or who
idea.
didn't. And I think that wasn't necessarily a choice thing. I think it was just more of an Easter egg kind of.
Yeah. But you did have the
input.
choice to cleanse it if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's my T-Mogs up, so of course I
Didn't
cleanse it.
It didn't really. It didn't really come of anything. They told us that there was going to be a reward for making it through to 9.0 with the Madness Crown, but we didn't actually get anything. So
yeah,
I'm kind of upset that I left my Paladin with the Nazoth Happy Hat and didn't get anything.
Came out of the Happy Meal.
Yeah. I'm really I'm bummed out about that one.
See, that would have been cool if they would have done something with that. But that feels very similar to this Horde side story choice. There you go.
That is
I wish
perfect.
this was a video podcast too.
Oh gosh, it's gonna be nearly impossible. Hold on.
Jared's pulling out the N'Zoth headwear.
Now we're good.
He's got.
For those of you, well, everyone's listening to this. I got a N'Zoth eye headband at BlizzCon last year.
That's
cool.
glorious.
We can't see it. So,
but you can't see it because
we're not wearing ours.
You don't have it,
so we're just believing you.
So I don't know what you're talking about is on my head right now.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh. Yeah, I didn't get mine last year. I saw one, and I was like, I want to get that, and I just never got around to doing it.
Yeah. Clanker from the Tauren and Goblin podcast, she had them and was handing them out.
That's cool.
Everywhere.
Do you want to add this last part in here for Jelly? Can we get some of that plot armor?
Yeah, I think that's my biggest takeaway from the Battle of Darkshore is I want the plot armor that Nathanos had when he got to fight Malfurion and Tyrande. That seemed a little silly that he got away from that fight, but it is what it is.
I mean, we watched Malfurion bury a man, an orc. He's like, I'm putting you 6 feet under with these roots, and there's nothing you could do about it. And then Nathanos is like, ha ha, I'm out of here. He's like, dude off of Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Yeah, just right off on a Valkyr, like, hey, all right. Tyrande could have moonfired him out of the sky, didn't care. No. I don't know. It's a little weird.
No, it just kind of bums me out about my whole thing about wanting to see more of Nathanos' character. Because I wholeheartedly agree. I wholeheartedly agree. He shouldn't have made it out of that, even a little bit. I mean, there's no way. Especially since not even the Valkyries had plot armor. One of them died, literally in the same fight.
Yeah,
like.
I guess at least he had the wherewithal to realize he wasn't going to win that fight and bail out. But
that's true.
Yeah, I mean you could chalk it up to it being Nathanos' cunning or his preparedness. He seems to be someone with a plan at all times. Whether that plan goes the way that he wants, it feels like he's always a couple of steps ahead, and has enough options laid out for him that no matter really what happens, he's always going to be able to pull an ace out of his sleeve.
Right.
And while I don't think that it was necessarily good storytelling that they let him live, I can see where they're going with it. So,
yeah, that's true.
I'll let it slide.
Well,
they wanted an epic battle, but they need him.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about the raid bosses here. Now, normally, each expansion has had that kind of super boss, right? Mm-hmm. So you had Kel'Thuzad, you had Arthas, Garrosh, Argus. This one has N'Zoth. Now, how do you feel N'Zoth ranks amongst all of the end bosses that we've seen so far in the World of Warcraft?
I think, personally, probably next to last. The bottom being Garrosh.
Mm-hmm.
I think he comes at just above Garrosh.
Just a tick above, huh?
Yeah. Not because of the relative power level, but because I feel like they did a really bad job this expansion selling him as an end boss.
Mm-hmm.
Because the title of the expansion is Battle for Azeroth. Obviously, it was a double entendre. Like, vying for supremacy between Horde and Alliance. Who's gonna win? Stay tuned to see more. Like, that was the the box art version of the expansion. But anyone who was paying attention from the moment that they announced this expansion could tell that was not even close to how this expansion was going to play out. That being said, they did breadcrumb it. Like, they breadcrumbed N'Zoth's influence throughout the entire thing. Tiergard Sound and basically the entirety of Kultiris had a lot of Old God-y influence being thrown around the entire time. Like one of the island off of the east coast of the northernmost zone. I know Tiergard Sound is like the one with the capital in it. What was the
Stormsong Valley?
Yeah, Stormsong
Valley. That little island off the east coast that ultimately had the Crucible of Storms raid that we went to. Even from the beginning of the expansion, that island was set up to be kind of a like definite Old God influence is happening here area. Like they I think the Tide Sage dungeon,
Shrine of the Storm.
Yes, Shrine of the Storm. I'm doing absolutely awful with names tonight, by the way.
Oh,
There's so many names in this expansion. I forget them.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that dungeon was there, but there was a quest line on this island. I don't know how far either of you got with it, but it was kind of this this homage to the game Darkest Dungeon, which if you've never played it, basically what it is a roguelike that you're recruiting characters to delve into dungeons to defeat monsters and get loot. And the more monsters you defeat, the better loot you get, the harder dungeons you can go into. But the one caveat that these dungeons are so horrific that they affect your characters negatively when they come out, if they make it out alive. And like the whole game has this vibe of balancing risk versus reward, where if you make a risky decision, you could end up either killing a character or, in often worse situations, giving them an affliction that makes it a lot harder to play through the game. And you had this quest line on this island that was very reminiscent of that, where you're having to go through and like the longer you spend on this island, the worse the madness gets and all this other stuff. And that was like the only thing that we really got until the latest patch, the N'Zoth raid patch. That was really the only thing that we got that was like definite Old Gods are doing really weird stuff that we should probably be paying attention to. Like I think that they took too long resolving the faction narrative, like the Horde versus Alliance narrative, giving us a raid with it to cap it off. I think was their goal from the outset of the expansion, but I think that raid should have been the first raid, and then we should have had Old Deer second. And have the faction conflict get out of the way right from the get-go, and then go into support mode where we're both factions are going in with the same goal, to sort out the new big evil that has imposed themselves on our world. But that's the only reason that N'Zoth, for me, is lackluster, because I don't think that they did enough in the expansion to build up to that confrontation.
Right. Well, and as an Alliance player, like, I kind of noticed signs as I was leveling on the Alliance side, but on the Horde side, I didn't see any of that until, like you're saying, until way later. Okay. And I think because of that, like, everything kind of tied a little bit better for me on the Alliance side with the end boss piece of things. So I think on that front, in my opinion, as far as like the wrapping up of the expansion, I felt like the Alliance side did it a little better, just because we had those little Easter eggs as we went, and we had the freaking eyeball of N'Zoth on our heads.
Yeah, which both Horde and Alliance had that. But
I didn't know because I couldn't see it on you guys. But
yeah,
but yeah, but I mean, I don't know. To me, it just we had that visualization of tentacles way earlier in the expansion, because we had tentacles everywhere. I mean, it was Tentacle City over on the Alliance side. So
there was the whole thing of the Tide Sages, like getting their directions and their wisdom from the sea. It was like, yeah, you might be doing that, but have you ever considered to think what it is that's telling you these things from the depths? Right. And it turns out, as we all correctly assumed, it was N'Zoth the whole time.
Yeah, just locked up undersea.
Yeah, which, I mean, kind of like puts this whole weird twist on the entire basis of Kultiris, because N'Zoth's been locked under the sea for tens of thousands of years, if not longer, probably hundreds of thousands. And the entire Kultiris like structure is built around listening to something that's in the ocean. They don't really know what, but it's something. And now we know, and that kind of makes me question everything about Kultiris that we know.
It's totally on the up and up, man. Nothing to see here.
They just don't ask questions. It's better that way.
That's right.
So, kind of along those lines of N'Zoth not feeling probably as impactful as some of the end of expansion bosses. Sometimes a previous tier boss actually ends up. It's not so much that the last boss compared to other last bosses is not as impactful, but just even bosses within their own expansions. So I know Burning Crusade, Illidan got a lot more storyline importance than Kil'jaeden, who ended up being the ultimate boss of that expansion. Yep. So how do you feel in terms of within BFA N'Zoth compares to G'huun or Ashara or Jaina, or even Unat, I guess, as kind of the boss of the expansion?
We don't talk about Unat. That raid didn't happen. No, I think the defining boss battle of this expansion easily goes to Jaina. Just because it was the most memorable fight out of any of the fights in the entire expansion. And that she was the second boss, in boss to a raid. Like, Azshara was cool. Fighting her was definitely an interesting fight, but man, I can't say that fight was cooler than the Jaina fight of, like, you're on this ship, you're having to like you finally caught up with not Sylvanas, with Jaina, and you're trying to keep her from escaping so that you can bring her to some sort of justice, and then she just freezes the ocean.
Yeah.
And you go fight.
That's her plan all along.
You go fight on the frozen ocean.
That was really cool.
Like the whole fight, like you have like the ad phase at the beginning. You've got a wall chase. You've got like a very finitely spaced arena in which things that will kill you are rapidly filling it up.
Yep.
And mismanaging it will kill your team. And like all sorts of like just cool mechanics that you have to balance in order to ultimately defeat her, defeat the boss. It was just all around a super memorable fight, and I think it'll go down as the best remembered fight of Battle for Azeroth.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm kind of disappointed that Ashara was kind of like a little one and done deal. She lasted a patch.
Yeah.
You've heard Ashara's name forever, like since the beginning of the Warcraft universe.
Vanilla,
Yeah.
Like hell, even like Warcraft 3,
right?
You hear Ashara's name and you're like, oh man, Ashara, I bet you she's badass. And you go to Nazjatar and she is badass, but we only got to mess with her for one time basically. So I'm hoping in the future she does show back up, because she is the most honorable of our characters, right? Do we agree on that?
She's the most transparent in terms of her goal, I guess.
That's true.
I feel like most of the build-up for her character came in Legion, because there was the whole Azuna storyline, which involved her quite heavily. Like, she wasn't... I won't say she was the antagonist of the storyline through that zone, because she definitely 100% was the antagonist of the storyline through Suramar.
Sure.
Everything that she did set everything that happened into Suramar in motion. But yeah, they just didn't carry over any of the story importance that was laid at her feet in Legion over into BFA, which I think is disappointing. Disappointing to say the least.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you have this mythical puppet master behind the scenes. And then...
Yeah, and then we best her, and then now she's a prisoner, and then we free her.
And then she helps us?
Yeah, it's very...
It's weird.
Very confusing. I won't go so far as to say it's contrived, but it's definitely something that I'm just like... I don't see how this fits into the overall story that we've got going on.
What do you think, Projali?
About Ashara? Or about all the bosses?
The question you asked.
Yeah.
And Ashara, too, yeah. All the above.
She gets a bad rap, No, I do think Jaina was probably, in terms of mechanics and just kind of the wow factor of like walking into that fight for the first time, I think it was the most unique in terms of the environment and kind of the build around, oh, we're really fighting Jaina now. Like she just turned this fight on us real quick. I did like Ashara, but again, it is, other than some of the mythic changes, it's the same fight kind of from 100 to 0 with a couple phase changes.
Yeah.
N'Zoth, I think N'Zoth fell victim, maybe Yogg-Saron to a lesser extent, but I think a lot of the old boss type bosses fall victim to that. You imagine them to be these huge orders of magnitude larger than life characters, but then in terms of how do you put that into a boss fight, you have to kind of downsize them for it to be actually playable. So
yeah,
him sitting in the middle of a room the whole time, it definitely
looking like a balloon
diminished his intimidation factor.
Yeah, I'm in the same camp as that for the Dragon Soul raid.
Yeah.
Like I hold the Dragon Soul raid at a higher mark than the other two raids that I put at the bottom, simply because that raid has, like, I have a soft spot for that raid, because it was the first raid that I was raid leading.
Oh yeah, okay.
A team, and bringing through, 10 other people into, or 9 other people into a raid, and actually getting the end result of downing an ultimate boss of an expansion. But I think that fight suffered a lot for the same reasons, is that we were fighting Deathwing, this larger than life force of nature that throughout the entire Cataclysm expansion we've seen literally almost destroy a planet.
Yeah.
And we'd catch a rat on his back, and then he pops out of the maelstrom, and we fight his tentacles. Like, it just didn't, like, from a story perspective, it didn't really have a good weight to the fight. And I feel like N'Zoth got the same treatment, and Azara for that matter. And I think the Azara fight suffered because they decided to make that fight not about stopping her from gaining power, but instead stopping her from releasing N'Zoth on the world. And I feel like they could have done something a little bit different with that. And, like, from a story perspective, still gotten the same effect of, like, the result of that fight is that now N'Zoth is released upon the world. Or they could have also just easily gone the route of she had been doing this the whole time, and now N'Zoth is out, and we learn that getting into Nazjatar, N'Zoth has been freed already. She's the one that did it. And we have to go stop her and then mount an assault on Ny'alotha.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that would have been a much better story to be told.
Sure.
At least in terms of, like, motivation to go fight her. Because, like, we're just going to fight her because she's trapped us, and the only way out of Nazjatar is to kill her. And then nothing ends up going the way that we think that it's going to go, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but at the same time, like, that fight just didn't have weight to it.
Yeah, she needed our necks in that room, and that was about it.
Yeah, and she got it.
All that Azerite.
Hell yeah. I mean, I think, for me personally, like, rolling up on Carapace was really fun because the background scene looked really cool. Like, N'Zoth looks crazy big. I remember seeing, like, the Wowhead pictures of here's the scale of N'Zoth versus the characters. And here's N'Zoth, like, this giant, like, the Goodyear blimp, basically, and then here's us, this tiny little Lego guy, standing next to him. And, yeah, we get into the room, and, he's a balloon, basically. That's what it reminded me of. I thought the fight was fun, though. Like, I enjoyed Ny'alotha as a whole. Like, I enjoyed my time in there. But as far as end bosses go, I agree with you guys. I don't think he kind of carried that weight. He didn't feel like an Arthas or, anybody else, really.
Yeah.
Yep.
The design of that fight kind of felt to me like they designed Carapace and the actual N'Zoth fight after it to be one fight.
Sure.
And then at some point, we're just like, no, this is too much. We can't have like a mythic only phase adding on to the end of this, because at that point it'll be like a 15 to 20 minute fight.
Mm-hmm.
And they were very much trying to keep the fights at like in the 8 to like 13, 14 minute range.
Right.
So I definitely feel like that fight was initially designed to be, you fight Carapace, and then you go down the hallway and you end up in that room where N'Zoth basically has you in his domain, and he's going to, do horrible things to your mind, and you gotta fight it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if they had done that I would hold the fight of like the actual fight of N'Zoth in a little bit higher regard than I do.
Sure.
But the fact that they split that fight up into two different ones kind of leaves a sour taste in my mouth, not gonna lie.
Yep.
That's fair. I mean, I feel like this expansion did a lot of really good things, and I feel like it did some not so good things.
Yeah.
So I think for me, like, a lot of people are like, this is the worst expansion. It's worse than WoD. I'm like, I don't know about that. But, I mean, overall, like, of course, my judging of things just goes on, A, did I have a good time? If yes, then it was good. I'm pretty easy to
figure.
Easy to please.
Yeah. So overall, let's get down to the nitty gritty here. So I'll ask you guys, on a scale of 1 to 10, story side, what do you give the side? So Alliance side, what do you guys give it?
Ooh. Wow. Alliance side, I gotta give the story like a solid 6. Like, it did a lot of good, and there were definitely a lot of solid story beats, but it just didn't wow me at the end of the day.
Projali, how about you?
I'm gonna go probably 5.5. Okay. I'm trying not to base it all on the cinematics that they released, like the Jaina animation, which was amazing. But in the context of like playing through the campaign and experience with it, 5.5 to a 6 probably.
Did you say 6?
5.5.
Oh, okay.
5.5.
And me as the Alliance honk, as a whole, I really enjoyed it. Yeah. As a whole, I really enjoyed the adventure through the zones. I mean, every expansion I've always had fun leveling. That's always been fun. I love the stories. Like, I liked the Freehold area. Drusvar was amazing. Storm Song was okay. Wasn't my favorite, but I liked the visuals in there, so visually it was really appealing to go into. So for me, I had a lot of fun with it. I got to give it at least a 7. Just because of my I think all my ratings are going to be a little inflated just because of my standard is so low. My bar to get over. But yeah, I mean, overall, I really liked it, so that was my opinion. Horde side. Jared, what do you give the Horde side?
Horde side, overall, for the entire expansion, I gotta give the Horde story, I gotta give it a solid 7. Because I feel like there was a lot more to lose on the Horde story, the Horde storyline overall, and I feel like they ended up pulling it out for me personally. But yeah, there were definitely things that left me wanting, which is why I'm not going higher with the score. But I think a solid 7 for the Horde.
I think that's reasonable. Projali, how about you?
It's 12 out of 10 an option. No, I'm a sucker for troll storylines. Troll axe throwers is what got me into Warcraft 2, so it's always kind of had a soft spot for me. And then when you start off this expansion going into Zuldazar, running into Prophet Zul, realizing all the stuff he did in Mists with Lei Shin, with Throne of Thunder, tying in all of those trolls, and then just kind of the whole concept of how trolls are one of the oldest races in the land, and they always have a hit or miss relationship with the Horde, and kind of seeing how that's going to play out through those first couple of patches I think that was a big hit for me. I think the storyline kind of fell a little flat around the Darkshore time with those storylines, and kind of once they were doing some more resolution with Jaina and her storyline, I don't know. I understand the reason for Nathanos and kind of what is behind him, but I feel like so much of his storyline I may have missed in Legion, or it's played out in short stories or novels that I haven't read, that I feel like there's a big gap there for me in like respecting his character. So I think that's where it loses some points for me. So I'm going to have to do probably 7.5.
Still respectable.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite, but it's a solid. I think it comes in solidly average, a little above average maybe.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. When I played through the Horde side, I was... So when I did a solo show where I ranked BFA as a whole. I gave it, I guess, C- is what my grade was. And that's because right after, the initial leveling experience was done, we got to 120. I freaking hated the Azerite system and the gearing and all that stuff. Drove me crazy. But what saved me on this game was playing the Horde side. And I had so much fun going through, seeing like the blood trolls in Nazmir and how just disgusting those little huts were. I was like, oh man, this is cool. Like, it felt gritty, it felt dirty, it felt dangerous. Like, the aesthetic was really fun. I loved Zandalar. Just as a whole, I thought that was really cool. Or Zandalar. What's the capital name? Zuldazar, right?
Zuldazar, yeah.
Too many Z's. Too many Z names here. I'm getting old.
Part of the Zandalari Empire, though.
But Zandalar, I know a lot of people complained about the efficiency of the capital. I was standing there just like, wow, this is amazing. Like, it feels like I'm in an old, like, Mayan temple, basically. I got dinosaurs running around. Like, I leveled a High Mountain Tauren on Projali's server, and I was like, man, I like it here. This is fun. I enjoy this. So I'm going to shock the world here, and I'm going to give the Horde side an 8. The Alliance guy. Enjoy.
You heard
the
it here,
Horde side
folks.
more. You can send all your hate mail to scrubsversustheworld@gmail.com.
Also, your congratulations.
Yeah, that too. So, yeah, I mean, I felt like they did a really good job with it, and I really enjoyed that side, and that's what kept me interested in the rest of the expansion, because this is the longest I've been invested in an expansion the entire time I've been playing WoW. Because I'll hit a point, I'll get gear, and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a little break for a couple months and come back. But I haven't done that this time around, so I enjoyed it.
It's quality.
All right, so now let's do an overall grade. Jared, what do you give this expansion overall story-wise?
Story-wise?
And you can add the two scores together if you so choose. I'm just kidding. It doesn't work that way. 1 out of 10.
Overall, gosh, I gotta give the whole story from start to finish I've got to give the story of BFA a 9. Because this expansion, more than any other, was about all of the various moving pieces of the story coming together to tell one overarching narrative. Like the Horde side had its moments, just as the Alliance had its moments, but overall, from a storytelling perspective, I think that this expansion is by far the best storytelling experience that Blizzard has ever delivered. And I'm not giving it a 10 out of 10, because as with all things, I think that there's definitely still room for improvement, and all of the things that we're seeing coming out of Shadowlands is looking like they're taking the lessons that they learned from BFA and applying them, not just from a gameplay perspective, but from a story perspective. They're looking at what worked, not just in BFA but also in Legion, and building upon that. So I'm giving it a little bit of room and going with a solid 9.
I like it. Projali, how about you?
So I think people who may have not paid attention to storylines in previous expansions or are coming into BFA fresh might see the storyline maybe a little fragmented if they're paying attention just on like a patch by patch level, because we're jumping to a bunch of different areas throughout this expansion, and it can really feel like, why are we seeing so much of Sylvanas? Who are these new trolls that their leader that we just met just gets killed, like right off the bat, pretty much? Like, why are all these different little pieces happening? How are they tying together? But when you look back to, and you had talked about Deathwing being this big baddie of previous expansions earlier, you arrive, and the first time you go into Nazmir, you see the giant effects of the Cataclysm, and all these stories about how this whole area of Nazmir is just sinking into the ground because of what Deathwing did to the world. Like, all of a sudden, this stuff you learned about 10 years ago at this point, it's like, oh my god, okay, so this is still having an effect to this day.
Yeah.
And, you kind of, if you paid attention to the Xandalars that you encounter in Eastern Kingdoms or Kalimdor, all their areas, like, oh, so Rastakhan is actually still like this leader, and we get to meet him now and encounter with all his decisions or indecisions and how that's going to affect the storyline. So I think they did a really good job of tying in a bunch of different kind of stories from previous expansions in a pretty well thought out way. So I'm going to have to give it a 9. I think a 9 feels good.
I like it. Yeah, and that's one thing that kept me entertained this whole time too, was seeing some of those Easter eggs and finding out about some of these characters we've been hearing about for years and years and years. Even though like I didn't like how Ashara ended, it's like it was finally nice to put a face to all this stuff. And I loved how when you're in Nazjatar, like everyone's like, Nazjatar sucks. It's like I thought Nazjatar was one of the better zones because A, it was challenging, and B, you had Ashara talking shit to you the whole time.
The whole time
you're in there.
Yeah.
And I thought that was fun. It gave me kind of a flashback to when Arthas was doing that, and you'd go into the dungeons and he'd pop out and he's like, oh, you got to kill these dudes because I'm going to give you power. You got to stop them, and he established that threatening presence, and I just liked how Ashara had that playfulness with us almost. But I also liked in the lovers fight right before her, you can, if you do a
Queen's
slash
Court.
fart or slash root or something, she just hits you with a lightning bolt and kills you. So there's like little things like that are in there that are really fun. But
Yeah.
anyways, so coming back to the whole thing, I enjoyed my journey from the beginning until the end, even though I didn't like the gearing stuff. I still appreciated that they, on a gameplay side of things, they rolled the dice and tried something new, where you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. This just didn't work, in my opinion. Great idea on paper, but whatever. But story-wise, again, every time I felt down on the game, because of gear or whatever, I enjoyed myself in the world again. And that's what really kept me going and kept me interested in everything. And the cutscenes are great, too. Those make it interesting. So I got to give it a 9 as well. Just because, overall, this expansion was super fun, I felt.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, definitely one of the stronger stories that they've put forward.
Mm-hmm.
Which, that's our opinion, and I can tell that opinion is coming from people that are, very much steeped in the story of Warcraft. Like, we've all been playing this game a really long time, but I can definitely see why someone coming into it, within the last 2 expansions, might not have the same feeling as us.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's okay.
Well, it's like with my son, because he's learning how to play. And he's done that. He's asked those same questions you guys are mentioning. Like, what the hell? Why did this guy die already? What happened to him? Yeah. It's like, oh, dude. Oh, my sweet young man. You have so much to learn. Well, cool. So unfortunately, Alliance side loses. Boo. With a score of 18.5 against the Horde's 22.5. But I helped
music to my ears.
To that. I have to live with myself now, but that's okay. So I know, Jared, you're on the show a couple episodes ago. Have you had any recent scrub moments that you'd like to share with the group?
Oh gosh, aside from so I've been mostly playing Classic the last couple of weeks, while I'm waiting for the pre-patch event, which, as of time of recording, comes out in 12 hours.
Yeah.
But I've been playing a lot of Classic, and I think this is something that really only Classic players are gonna get. But I went in and got all gung ho, trying to get all of my attunements for Molten Core and Blackwing Lair all taken care of, and put the cart in front of the horse. Found the group before I got all the quest lines.
Oh no!
To get all the attunements. So yeah, I have to go run those dungeons again.
Oh no!
Yeah. Which I'm not that upset about, because I got a couple of pieces of gear, so it's fine. But at the same time, I just could have. I just could have spent 30 minutes.
That's time you will never get back
before trying to find a party, and here I am now. But I'm only level 58 on my Warlock, so I've got a couple of levels to go before I'm actually looking at getting into a raid team. So it's not too big of a scrub moment, but still feels pretty bad.
It feels bad.
BFD part takes so long.
Yeah, it does. It takes so much time.
That's still a good one, though. Let's see. I got a good one. I actually texted this to Projali last night when I was playing. So I'm leveling a Druid. Leveling a Kultiran. Just to see what the new leveling's about, right? So I'm at 43 at the time. Let me pull the text up. I can read it to you verbatim here. So I was leveling through, and I looked down. I've been messing with my UI stuff. So, a lot of the little mini things aren't the... You know how, when you have a talent, a little thing pops up. It says, hey, man, you got a talent. You should probably use this. And I was cruising through, and I leveled again, which is nice. The new leveling's great. I'm at 43 at this time. I looked down, and I think I deleted a couple add-ons. And the thing popped up saying, you have talents. I'm like, oh, cool. I must have just unlocked one. I go in and open it, and there are 0 talents selected. So I leveled from from, I think, what is it? They start at 10 or 1. I can't remember where they start, but I leveled from the start of the Colterian to 42 with no talents.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's precious.
Yeah. So I went through tonight and actually, before we jumped on, and made a bunch of macros and fixed all my stuff. So now I probably won't die as quick.
It's just challenge mode, you know?
Yeah, that's what I was doing.
Yeah, you're just doing the Iron Man challenge. It's fine.
Yeah. Only I failed it because I equipped a green like immediately. Oh man, Projali, you got any fun ones for us? I know. Mine's pretty tough to top there.
So I didn't back up my TSM data like I should have with pre-patch, so a lot of my auction house stuff is gone, so I got to set up all my groups and I'll go back through all that monotony. But I was recently just doing a post scan through TSM, which is just taking everything in your inventory and giving it a price compared to whatever else is on the market. So I'm going to post some pets, not really paying attention, just clicking through, and log back in the next day, and looks like I've sold a pet, the Syrian Scorchling, that median sale price is usually about 125k. I ended up selling it for 55k. So, and I checked the seller and I look on the auction house, and sure enough, he's reposted it at 125k.
Oh no!
So,
oh gosh!
Whoops.
Well, I guess you can go away from that knowing that you made someone else feel really good about themselves.
Yeah, you know, I made some gold out of it, I guess. That's the benefit. He's going to make some more gold. So
that's true.
Win-win, right?
It's a win-win situation.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. See, it feels good. They'll just let it out. All right. So, Jared, where can we find you on the web?
You can find me in so many places. I guess first and foremost, you can find me on my show, Merely A Setback. We record almost every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or daylight if you observe, whenever that happens, over on twitch.tv/setbackpodcast. And I think we're going to be having an episode this week. So if you want to check that out, we do a live recording, but of course the day after or day after that, it gets posted on all of the podcast repositories everywhere. So wherever you find your podcast, you can find that there. You can also watch me stream personally on my channel, twitch.tv/JaredRPG. I stream less regularly than I should, but I play all sorts of MMOs and games in general over there. So if you ever want to pop in and say hi, be my guest. And if you ever want to reach out to me on Twitter and just have a chat about whatever, about the weather, if you want to, you can find me on Twitter at JaredRPG. Yeah. I had to double check in my brain to make sure. But yeah, at JaredRPG is where you can find me on Twitter. Oh, and before I forget, my YouTube channel, I have a web series called Walking and Talking. And this last episode that I did, I had Jesse from the Lost Codex on, and we talked a lot about transmog. So if you want to check that out, head over to youtube.com/JaredAdventurer.
Nice. Well, cool, man. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
That was a lot of fun. And thanks for listening to the show, everyone. You can find the show on Twitter at ScrubsVerse. You can find the website at www.scrubsversetheworld.com. Wherever you are out there, I hope you're having a great day. And as always, keep getting good.
This show is brought to you by Dragon Powered Studio. Find more at dragonpoweredstudio.com.